It is time for some more of the Divide Et Impera 1.2 campaign as the Medewi. Last time we defended against a Tolmoi attack on the island of Cyprus at Salamis, and then we counterattacked their final settlement at Side and took them down, wiping out our big rival from the start of the campaign. And with that done, everything was pretty much stable. We got decent relations with the Ozalces, but are now looking to expand in other regions. In particular, Arakamani has spent a very long time coming down here, back to where he started, because from Ethiopia we can sail over to Arabia and look for more conquests. His army's been slightly upgraded with a greater number of noble troops with better equipment, and there's our enemy out there, the Saba, our future enemy at least. I've been spying on them. They've got a lot of troops around the place, but we will of course talk more about that in a bit. Here's the rest of the empire. Really nothing going on. Public order is great, no threats from any borders, a very peaceful situation. So peaceful in fact that Ozalces, who was responsible for defending it, has just wandered off into Libya, where our allies are fighting against Cyrenaicae. This is one of the states that Egypt initially called into war against us, and they really hate us mainly because we're allied to people they're at war with right now. So what I'm going to do, just to give Ozalces some action, is force one of our allies to buy us into this war, so we'll get some free money for starters, and then he can march out to support their armies. That will mean Cyrenaicae probably can't attack that force and beat both of us, so that's going to force some sort of stalemate by the looks of things. Now they've got a decent amount of troops here. They're probably going to recruit more the longer we leave them, and I even noticed that one of their armies is no less than the daemons of Polymos. We can expect some action from them, no doubt. And also their commander was this guy called Arakamani, so it seems there's an Arakamani fan in the Cyrenaicae camp or something. So with that done, we're going to move into the next turn where literally nothing happened. They just sat there, and our allies just sat there as well, so Ozalces not getting the action he wanted perhaps. We're going to try and keep supporting our allies. We'll just fortify near them. We don't have the forces to attack the city on our own, so we need our allies to do something, and it looks like they might be bringing over reinforcements, so willing to just wait and see what happens there. Now they actually come to us with a peace offer. They want us to pay them a relatively small amount to not attack them. I just reversed that deal and said, I'll not attack you if you surrender to me, and they said, ah right, and instead, realizing the diplomatic situation here, offered a very large sum of money for us to go away. So they certainly changed their tune very quickly. Now that's actually a tempting offer because we could just take the money and attack them anyway. It's several turns worth of income there, but I'm going to play it hardline, just say be my satrapy. They said no, and so we'll continue on fair and square. Now I noticed that Saba had declared war on Nabata to their north. This could be quite handy for me as a distraction and as a way for me to buy my way or be bought into a war against Saba to make some free money. And I'm not going to bother pronouncing the first word in these faction names, by the way, just to make everyone's life easier. So we can sail right now and take their first settlement on the tip of the Arabian Peninsula. I get Nabata to buy me in for a small amount, so that is well and good. And we don't really want to get any more diplomacy with them because Nabata's at war with virtually everyone in the region, so we don't want to make enemies of everyone by being on their good side. Now it took me a while to work out why I couldn't move right now. It's because I've actually started the war in the zone of control of one of the Saba navies, so I eventually realised that the game wasn't just glitching out and got rid of that navy. So from here we can now actually go and land forces. Fortunately, we can attack right away, so we'll do that. The garrison inside, not particularly powerful according to that balance bar, and we can make it even worse for them by bringing the fleet around, which I also managed to struggle with there, and in it goes. One thing about this fleet is that it does actually have supply ships in it, so my claims in previous episodes that you couldn't build supply ships were false. I think you just need a certain type of the many types of docks available to get it. So we now can move guys across the sea without them all dying all the time, and that's great. So anyway, we take the settlement with no problems whatsoever, minimal losses compared to the number of losses on the enemy side, and now we'll just sit in it. It also has a building that can be upgraded into the building that recruits elephant units, and that certainly could be interesting, so I'm going to go for that while we wait around here. Now, it seemed that some action had happened back up in Libya. The Karanike forces had moved out and fought with our allies, leaving us just sitting in the corner. We somehow weren't involved in all of this. But what we can do is just go and besiege their settlement now that most of their stuff is gone. They've still got a fleet in it, and they'll have their garrison army and fleet as well, so the bounce bar super far in their favour, amplified by the fact they're going to have walls and towers defending them, so getting in will be difficult. I'm just going to keep them under siege. I'm going to put some siege equipment together and really just see what happens on that front. As the turn goes by, we see there is more fighting between Karanike and our allies, and they appear to lose, so that's Karanike's army gone. That's going to make life easier if my allies then come over to help us with the siege assault, so that's what I'm going to hope for there. Meanwhile, Arakamani just going to wander further into Arabia to look for a fight. We need to take 2 more regions to secure Arabia, Felix, and they're very far apart, so this is going to take a very long time, even if things go absolutely ideally. And the first hurdle is the biggest one. Lots of enemy forces, a walled settlement with a big garrison, and the settlement we're leaving behind is probably going to rebel, so we actually can't really leave right now. Now, Saba shows their hand by coming to attack us once we get close to their border, and I didn't really want to fight this, but I took the opportunity to look over their units. Not that this is particularly useful, because we don't get any details about them, we just see what they look like, so we have to vaguely judge the weight and power of these units from their appearance, which isn't really going to work very well. So yes, in this fight we will just leave. Unfortunately the enemy don't pursue, and we actually see another Saba army appear, so they now have about 2 3/4 stacks defending that walled settlement, which itself will have almost a full stack, so let's call it 3.5 armies and the walls and towers. Advancing is going to be very difficult, clearly. I did need to actually go back and deal with the rebels, but I got this opportunity to attack an isolated Saba force. Well, that's how it seemed. It looked like they just put a small force just over our new border, but actually there were 2 hidden armies just standing there. Not sure why I couldn't see them before, but yes, we won't bother with that fight now that we see how big it is, or will we? Because I remembered immediately after disengaging that if I come back and just say it's a night attack, then we can kill that first army still on its own. So that's what I'm going to do. I decided that the garrison could probably hold if the rebels attacked it right now, so I didn't need to rush down there, since this will use up a decent amount of my movement points just moving backwards and forwards and doing these battles here. So with that done, we'll now start running away. We still don't want to be anywhere near those other 2 armies, because if they both attack me at the same time, that could be difficult. We really want to try and take them one at a time if we can, just hope the circumstances allow for it. Now back over with Ozalces. Our allies have moved up an army, but it's not in reinforcement range, it's just raiding behind us, so that's not much use. I'm just going to make some more siege equipment and see if they get the idea. They just need to shuffle slightly towards me to actually be of use to us. Now the Saba forces do just combine their 2 armies to come and attack Arakamani. I'm going to run backwards and not fight them, and kindly they don't pursue. Most of their forces seem to go back on the defense, but they did leave 1 stack in our territory. Before we see that stack, we'll just quickly wipe out those rebels. That's not going to be any problem at all for Arakamani. They really should not have tried. So that should improve public order, and we may be able to avoid another rebellion happening due to the crackdown bonus that gives us. Now that first stack that was left in our territory seemed to have disappeared, so I just started walking back up the road, and indeed it was still there. These Saba guys seem to have a habit for just disappearing and reappearing at will. I was checking what was causing all our negative public order, and the cultural differences is the main problem. It's going to take a long time for us to convince these people that they are Egyptians, so until then they're going to be pretty annoyed about being ruled by Egyptians, so we'll just have to work on that. So yes, this army appeared right in front of us, and now we're in their zone of control, because we didn't see it until we were within the zone of control, so we actually have to engage them here. Their commander is an even higher level than Arakamani by the looks of things, and they've got a pretty decent army, but it has less of a presence on the balance bar than our side does, so I thought we might as well head in and try and take them out in a straight battle. Now this battle is going to be interesting in a sense, in that it's the first battle we've seen in this series that is just an ordinary field battle with no tactical complexities going on whatsoever. We are just going to run at them and try and win with infantry superiority. So in goes our front line. Some of our front line have these 2-handed axes, making them very nice on the attack, but it's mostly just our generic medium infantry unit, which are still pretty good as melee combatants. On the enemy side, lots of skirmishes actually, and even more than I thought, because their backline of Sabian noble spearmen were also archers, so a lot of fire going to be raining down on us as we advance. They've got javelinmen and various horseback skirmishers in the middle as well. So all sorts of ranged units. We just want to charge in as soon as possible and get a melee going. A lot of their troops are decent melee fighters as well, lots of combined role units basically in the Saba army. So not going to be a walkover, we are going to have to try and work to break their morale if we want to get through this without taking a lot of losses ourselves. A little bit of a messy first engagement on the front line, it wasn't two straight lines, there are some weird shapes going on. And our troops using their javelins to the best of their ability. Something that's nice about Rome 2 and was for whatever reason removed later was the ability for units to throw javelins while they're in melee. Now I did move a unit round to the back of the enemy's army to charge into the rear of their general's unit. Since their general's really high level, it's going to be a high priority to try and take him out of the fight. He's probably giving them a load of buffs. Our general, Al-Gramani, is going to be going around to the back of the enemy's army as well. Now I saw what I thought was an opportunity here to take out some of their archers. I rushed the cavalry forward to hit them, the enemy skirmish cav getting out of the way, and their archers suddenly turned into a spear unit, so I was slightly foiled here. This means that not only were their heavy spearmen also archers, but their archers were also spearmen. So this army is very well composed for taking down cavalry, and Arakamani is going to have to get out of there. It's going to be difficult though, because as he escapes, he clips the back of this camel unit, which then turns round to fight him. And camels get a bonus when fighting cavalry, because horses are scared of camels. So I tried to get him out of that fight as well, just running into the back of the enemy's spearmen, so that wasn't a very good move. Now he's swamped with camels and heavy spearmen, and I'm going to try and get him out of there as well. We are going to encounter a classic Total War issue, which is you can't really disengage from fights once they start, because the individual unit AI always tries to fight people who are nearby, so you have to constantly give them movement orders to get them out of a fight. And with this absolute mess of a formation going on, it's going to be particularly hard. We do eventually manage it. Most of Arakamani's unit was killed in this action, trying to run through all these enemy units, but he himself survived, and that's ultimately all that matters here. The danger is over, and his presence seems to have routed a whole bunch of enemy units. We are in general starting to push through on this left flank. Here are two-handed axemen just cutting apart the enemy's lighter troops. All good for us, so we'll need to use the advantages we're gaining here to try and outflank the enemy's remaining troops. They weren't really willing to leave or rout because most of them were the Sabian noble units, which have high morale, so it was difficult to get rid of some of their units. That one there routed through one of my own units. That's one of the lesser spear squads, so they're going to be going right down, and the rest will just have to be grinded against for a while. They also have some archers still sitting back here, picking away at us. We don't really have anything that can catch mounted skirmishers, so we're just relying on our own foot archers to shoot them from a distance and try and kill enough of them that they'll rout, because our anti-cavalry units, our heavy Mero spearmen, have no chance of ever catching them. Our own light cavalry just marauding some of the routing units, trying to reduce their numbers so that the enemy have less left over after this fight is won, and soon enough the fight is indeed won. Everything at chain routes, including all of the noble units, and now we'll just take a bit of time to slaughter them as best we can. We want to take out these high value units while they're vulnerable and make the most of our victory, leave Saba with as little as possible to work with afterwards. Eventually I get bored of killing everything, or we kill everything that's near enough to bother chasing, and it's a decisive victory for our side. What we expected and what we needed, but we need a couple more of those to actually make any progress, because taking out an army that's just sitting in our territory doesn't actually achieve anything, because the enemy's capacity to field more of the same army isn't reduced, so we'll just have to fight it again if we don't do something soon. We actually lost a full unit on our side, and the enemy's general, the one we were trying to take out, somehow survived with just a couple of men, although we can rectify that situation by just chasing after him after the battle and having another quick war to resolve. That time the entire army was finished off. Really annoyingly though, our baggage train was lost. It seems all of our casualties were concentrated in the baggage train. I don't know what Arakamani was doing, sending them in to hunt down the enemy's commander, but that means we're now taking attrition because we don't actually have any supplies out here. You can't get supply lines going during summer in this desert region apparently, so we now have to recruit a new baggage train. We can just about do that right now. There's barely enough population to do so, so I start the recruitment. That recruitment though is going to be cancelled by the fact that Saba brings another army down to fight us. This army is apparently much stronger. They have a gigantic amount of the balance bar there. I wasn't quite sure why. It didn't look like anything special. I think it's those first couple of units. They're a thorax sword style unit. So something like what the Hellenic factions can field, and they're pretty powerful. So I ran away from that fight, came back to re-recruit our baggage train, and I couldn't do it because there's no population left to do so. I think our army has taken some of the population while replenishing, and there's not enough left that is considered native to Egypt for us to hire units from our faction. So we have to spread our culture more so that we can regard the local population as being natives, and that will allow us to recruit native units, and the baggage train is unfortunately counted among those. So right now all we can hire are foreign-based units, so the area of recruitment things basically. We'll try that for now, but we're going to switch focus back to Ozalces now, where after a few turns of waiting, we haven't really made any progress here because our allies just aren't coming up to support our siege attack. They're still raiding behind us just out of reinforcement range, and the rest of their armies are doing absolutely nothing. So at this point, I've got bored of waiting. We've taken a lot of attrition keeping this siege going. We need to just conclude this. And the balance bar is really far in our favour. It's the opposite of what it was when we started this siege, because siege equipment, for whatever reason, gives you a huge buff. I don't know if that's particularly accurate, but I am going to fight this one to find out for myself, which we'll see next time.